Where does your entrepreneurial spirit come from? Because that's entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah. So I wouldn't get paid enough at work, so I found something else to do.
What's up, everybody? My name is Adam, and I'm the host of the UKnowAdamTsang podcast, the show that is dedicated on bringing on passionate people, learning about their stories, and delivering value to entrepreneurs. So if that's what you're interested in, go ahead and follow, like, and subscribe. You know what I'm saying?
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the UKnowAdamTsang podcast, where you get to know just a little bit more about people, passions, and all things business. Today, sitting across the way, I have Mr. Justin Lewis, the president of Lewis Color and Print. That still is the name right now, isn't it?
Yeah, Lewis Color.
Lewis Color?
Yep, Lewis Color.
Fantastic. Incorporated.
Yeah.
Lewis Color is one of those long-standing family-operated companies in Statesboro, Georgia. I just want to throw this in there. I was speaking about it to you a little bit before the show started. But the first kind of like inspiration that I got for this podcast was actually done with Tommy Lewis at Lewis Color.
Yeah.
And I just came through, did some video content and did kind of this business interview and found that I just have this passion for learning about people's companies, the challenges that they've gone through, and it was so much fun. And I owe it all to Tommy for that experience. So, but enough about him. Justin, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, talk to me about Lewis Color. What in your definition, what is Lewis Color?
We're a wholesale commercial printer, so our main customers are other printers, brokers, and marketing firms. But we still support the local market here in Statesboro. We create integrated print solutions for resellers. So say one of our other companies has a client, they want to set up a storefront. So we set up storefronts to where they have online ordering portals, and everything's printed in our facility and shipped directly to their customers.
That's amazing.
Yep.
And is that what you like? How did the company get there? Was that how it started, or take me through the history of Lewis Color?
It's definitely not how it started. My grandfather started it in 1961.
1961.
Yeah.
In Statesboro?
In Statesboro.
Okay.
Yep. So he was working at the Bullock Herald at the time. It wasn't the Statesboro Herald back then.
Okay.
And so he started printing on the side a little bit in his little pool house behind his house. And from there, it kind of slowly grew. They sold rubber stamps and printing at the beginning. And it got busier and busier. And I think he went full-time in 1970, so he was able to quit the Bullock Herald and go full-time into printing.
What did he initially do at the Herald?
He was a linotype operator for the Herald. So they set type and stuff for the paper.
Old school, huh?
Old school, yeah. So it was all metal type, and furniture is what they called it, which was wooden pieces to lock in the type. And really old school stuff.
And so there was already a printer at the Statesboro Herald.
That's right, yeah.
But he had just, I guess, went out and purchased his own?
So kind of go back even further. He's originally from Appling County, and he moved to Savannah when he was 14 years old.
Wow.
So lived with his sister there, and from there he took a job and did kind of like a union job at the Savannah Morning News.
Okay.
And that's where he learned to print. He met my grandmother there in Savannah. She was going to school, and then they came back to Statesboro and built a house. And
when you say back to States, she was from Statesboro.
She's from Statesboro,
okay.
Yes.
And where did she go to school at? I guess like a.
There was I can't really recall what college it was in Savannah she went to, but she went to some business college there. And met my grandfather, and so they came back here and moved to my great grandfather's farm. And built a house, and that's kind of how he moved into the Bullock Herald and printing industry as altogether.
There's something interesting in here where, just because he had the job at the Statesboro Herald, it doesn't mean that, he's an entrepreneur. It was very entrepreneurial of him to actually purchase his own machine and start doing that on the side. Do you know of why he did that or how he did that?
He always had the drive to do something himself. He always wanted to create his own company. He had that passion and drive. And so, he didn't have much money back then, and so he used his first he used a tax return. And he got like $110 back, and he bought his first machine for $100. And there's a funny story about that's written on our wall at work, but I can't really recall it right now. That's how it really got started, was that first little initial investment. And my grandmother supported him all the time, and they made a successful business out of it.
That's awesome. How about the actual first machine? Do we still have that first machine?
We don't. We have about the third or fourth machine they purchased, which is an old antique windmill from the 50s. We still run it probably once a week.
I see that machine. Like when I took the tour.
It's a Heidelberg
so what is
windmill.
that?
It does like it can do full stamping, or it can do like numbering. So there's like hard numbering machines in which it's smashed between the paper and the metal plate that activates it to change the number. So every sheet you'll have a different number. And it does like die cutting of like door hangers and things of that nature.
That's so cool.
So some people really like the old school look of crash numbering and impressions. So we have a handful of customers we still run on that machine because they love that unique look and feel.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So take me to the point where, do you know kind of like when he started the company, he went full time, and then kind of like what happened then? Like, did it start growing? Like, what was the...
Yeah, so in the very beginning, they had 3 kids, my aunt, Uncle Tommy, and my dad, Randy. So they were all brought up in the business from the time they could walk. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
So even at that young age, they were moved. Okay.
They were folding things, stapling it at night at the kitchen table. And my great-grandmother lived down the road, and she would come over and help. So everybody on the road would come over there, and they'd help finish jobs at night to deliver.
Do you know if they ever got paid for those hours, or?
Very unlikely that they got paid, for sure.
I know a little bit about that.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, free labor. Definitely the family business. You're considered free labor for a while.
That's right.
But from there, my uncle and dad started really working in the business. He opened up a shop. It's where In Shape Fitness is now.
Okay.
My great grandfather used to own a service station at that corner.
Okay.
And so when the service station shut down, he let my granddad and grandmother, that's where he opened his first location.
So that was the print shop originally.
Was the print shop,
okay.
Yeah. And so it grew. They kept on doing little additions. I played that a lot. It looks a little funky because of all the different additions they've done over the years.
Yeah.
But that's where it started, and it primarily serviced just the Statesboro, Bullitt County market, Savannah. But as my dad and granddad were getting closer to high school and college, they really wanted to make a career out of it. They knew that there just wasn't enough sales there in our area to support them having a full-time salary. So what they did kind of out of the box in the early 80s is they started going wholesale, printing for other printers. So they created this big marketing kit. My grandfather was so against it. He's like, you never publish your pricing or anything like that. So they went right against his will, and they spent a bunch of money on a big marketing kit that went up all the way to New York, Miami, and it was primarily to print brokers and other printers. And the phones just started ringing off the hook. They doubled the business within 4 months. So at that point in time, we became a wholesale commercial printer, and that's how we've grown ever since.
Do you remember, or have you ever heard of kind of like, you said that there was this clash, right? Because the grandfather did not want them to move towards this direction.
That's right.
But yet, like
my
Tommy,
uncle and dad,
yeah, they kind of like wanted to move, and so that tension. Do you ever hear about kind of like through the grapevine of like what that ultimately resulted in? Because obviously it brought tons of success to the organization.
They talked to me. I mean, he ultimately had to sign off on it in the end because they didn't own any part of the business at that point. They were employees, just family employees. So they did the convincing. They put a marketing plan together, and they was like, just let us try it this one time. Let's see what happens. And he allowed it to go through, and 3-4 months later, he's like, it worked out pretty well. So, but there's always those little clashes within family businesses, no doubt.
Yeah.
It's how you grow from them, learn from them, and we hadn't had many at all in our company. We work well together, our family.
How much of the family's in the company?
So currently, Tommy is retired, but he still comes up there like every day.
He
so
does?
We welcome him every day. Still comes up there and eats lunch with us.
Can't stay away, right?
It's part of your blood. My grandfather was the same way up until probably the last 2 years because he couldn't get up and go around or get up as much. But that was his passion. coming every day just to walk around, see everybody, stir the wasp nest,
Sure.
and then leave.
Yeah, yeah.
But my sister currently works as an account manager.
Okay.
They have me as president, and my father's still vice president. He just works remotely from St. Simons. It comes up once a week.
Gotcha.
We have some distant cousins and things that work with us, but that's all we have full time right now.
What about kind of like during when Tommy was president? How much was there a ton of family that kind of like was in the business?
There wasn't through the years. We've all worked there. All my cousins have worked there through high school and things of that nature, but nobody was ever full time other than really myself.
Yeah.
But we, cousins, nephews, things of that nature have all worked there.
So let's get to the good part of this. Talk to me about your journey, right? So when did you start kind of working at Lewis Color?
So I started from a very young age. As a kid, like you said, and you've been in family business, you kind of work for free as you're 4 and 5 and 6 years old, because back then my grandmother picked me up from school and you were dropped off at work and you stayed there until Dad left work every single day. So did that for, years as I was younger. I, was sweeping the floors. I ran laminators, was the first, I guess, official piece of equipment ever.
How old were you?
8, 9,
Yeah.
something like that. And so I do it in the afternoons, and I started making a little money. And so I really kind of liked that, and having a little money to, buy what I wanted when I went to a store with my friend or something like that.
Yeah.
So I kind of got the bug, and I wanted to work more. I mean, I just really enjoyed it from a young age. I always remember just trying to, make your parents proud. You wanted to work. It was just kind of a weird feeling because everybody's like, well, you were 13, 14, but I had a passion for it.
That's right.
So it was a little different for me. So after school, I'd work, most days during summer, we'd work. I really started coming on full time when I was in 9th grade. I worked in the evenings, and I ran a small press. And then 10th grade, I started working full time at night. So after school, I worked a 3-to-1 shift, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, running our half-size press at night. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. And that's kind of my journey through school. And me and my dad had discussions while I was in high school, like, all right, am I going to college, or what am I going to do? And he's like, you can be in this business right here, and you can make a real go of it. Doing some continuing education class at night, not necessarily saying I have to go to a 4-year, school.
Sure.
So I came right out of high school in 2007. I graduated from Statesboro High, and went right into the business. And you know what happened in 2008, the recession hit.
Sure.
So it was funny. I got right out of high school, and then all of a sudden I take down to 32 hours at that shop. I'm like, oh gosh, probably should have went to college, but I dug in there, and and I worked through our digital department and various areas of the plant, learning more of the business. There wasn't a huge upside during the recession because it really hit us hard from 2009 to 2012 was kind of our hard years.
It impacts you guys? Why, like, just because like people aren't printing as much?
Yeah, spending. When spending's down, our biggest things we're printing is direct mail and marketing items.
Got you.
So when restaurants, people aren't eating out, they're not going on vacations, that really affects our market.
That's right.
Especially with this last recession. But during that time, I had a good friend of mine he was a farmer here in town, still is, and there was a big need for cotton. Cotton prices went up in 2011-12, like $2 a pound. So, and the cotton was not getting to the gin quick enough, so it was sitting out in the field for a long time. So, and his cotton was part of that. So we looked at getting a cotton truck to haul to the local gin here. And I'm like, well, I'll work it at night if you can work it during the day. So I studied and got my CDL license while working at the shop. And we bought a cotton truck and we started hauling cotton. We did that for 4 years.
Where does your entrepreneurial spirit come from? Because that's entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah. So I wasn't getting paid enough at work, so I found something else to do.
Forced.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. I get that drive a lot. My dad, he's always looking at the next thing to do.
Sure.
Whatever it is, he kind of wants to look at it. He kind of gives it to me to kind of look at it and be like, I'm a lot more kind of conservative.
You
entrepreneur.
Are?
Yes.
Compared to him.
Yeah. So we kind of both look at it. And we both agree normally it's a pretty good investment or something to do.
Yeah.
But he's always out there looking for those things. Then we get together and kind of figure out if that's what we want to do.
Mm-hmm. So you're kind of going through this journey. You get your CDL license. How was cotton?
Mm-hmm. We were busy. We were wide open. So we hauled for the gin here in town, Southern States. And so most of the drive was 30 miles from Statesboro within. Mm-hmm. So wasn't long hauls because I would not be a good long haul driver because I'd fall asleep. So
That's not good.
At least we would drive to the field. You go off, pull your tags, and get back in the truck, and you drive it back to the gym. So yeah, we did that for 3 or 4 years, but I worked myself just about to death during that time frame. 19 to 24 years old, somewhere there. I'd work 6 to 2 at the shop, Lewis Color, and then I'd work from 6 to 2 on a cotton truck.
Wow.
So I took 2-3 hour naps a day, and I do that from September until about February during cotton season.
What type of sacrifices does it take to do this?
No, it took a lot. Social life was not there for sure. And you start looking at yourself, it took a lot of like physical sacrifice as well. I mean, you're just taking little naps, you're tired all the time. So, but I always just say, all right, when February gets here, I get to rest from February to September. And I'm like, and in a year and a half, we'll have this truck paid for and we'll start making good money with it. So that's kind of my, that's my drive behind it. So I'm young, I can do it now. I know I can't do this when I'm 40 years old, but I can do it now.
That's right.
And so we made it through that time frame at work where things was kind of slow at Lewis Color. And I got to a point where I was starting to move into the role of VP operations at Lewis Color as well. So I didn't have the time to where I could be that tired at work and I wasn't as effective. So we ended up selling the company and the truck after about 4 or 5 years. It was a good investment, paid off, learned a lot.
Yeah.
And still have my CDO license. If everything
Nice.
goes down, I'm driving.
Backup plan.
Yeah, backup plan for sure.
So what made you eventually kind of like leave that? Was it just you got so busy at Lewis Color?
I did. I didn't have a, with on any business, it's not I can come in at 6 to 2 or I can't come in at, you're normally there a little later, a little earlier. Problems happen. You got to be on call to go up there because we run a 18-hour a day at our shop, 2 shifts. So if something goes down at night, even though we have a chain of command who you call,
Sure.
a lot of times I'm, getting that call and having to go out there. So it was just too much to handle it all at one time. So that's why I had to kind of bring my focus 100% back to the company and really just push and try and grow it.
Talk to me about, a concept that's often referred to as nepotism, where, because you're family, you get kind of like, put, in leadership roles, so forth and so on. For me, I think, when I first came back to the Boiling Shrimp, I was immediately kind of like inserted as manager. And that actually gave, I had a lot of kind of like, looks my way saying like, okay, well, what's going on here? Yeah. But I worked for mine, right? Like I still kind of like, regardless of, whatever happened, I still kind of like put forth the best effort. But it sounds like, for you had a bit of a different path into it. So talk to me about that.
So I definitely had a different path with that. And I guess that's a good thing. I never had to worry about that because I was there from I was a kid till I never left ever, so just kept on working even more, moved around the shop. So the good thing is when I talk with our employees or we have meetings or discussions or if there's ever problems that arise, the good thing is I've probably been there, done that, seen it, seen that problem. So I can really relate to them at so many different levels at the shop. And so we don't have any of that feeling, but I can see where in some instances that could happen with other people and family businesses. It's almost like you have to go out there and try and prove yourself.
Sure.
And I still put that little bit of pressure on my back every day because I've only been president 2 years now, just making sure that we're, better in our company, trying to create more, my vision and culture within the company as well.
Ooh, you bring up a favorite topic of mine, which is company culture. What type of company culture? Let's define it first. So, what is your definition of company culture?
It's how we carry out our day. Are we going to be a slave driving type company to where you come here 8, 5, you're a robot? Or are we going to have, hey, I understand that our employees have, their kids have baseball games, soccer games, things of that nature. So we just kind of work together, pull together to where, hey, if you do need to go, Wednesday at 2:00 to this, we allow that to happen and things like that. More of a family oriented company. We do cookouts once a month.
Love that.
Bring in breakfast when I can. We just did a cookout last week and, just not really for anything other than, hey, I just appreciate everybody, wanting to be here and kind of collaborate and get together.
So this brings up an important question, right? Because, we do this for our employees or our team members, family, if you will.
Yep.
But what happens, do you ever see people taking advantage of that, of the kindness, of, us going above and beyond as much as we can?
Mm-hmm. I don't see anybody taking advantage of it. I can see people getting used to it to where it's like a routine. So like one day when that breakfast doesn't show up, like,
yeah, it's like, come
that's
on.
part of my package. Where's the breakfast? So I try not to ever miss it, so nobody says that, or the monthly meals or bi-monthly, whatever it is. But I can see your point of that. It could definitely come up, but I haven't seen it within our company, but we've really only been doing this for about last year or two.
Yeah. Is that something that you implemented? You didn't do that before?
We didn't do it before. We did we always had like a Christmas party and Thanksgiving, things like that. And I've been doing it kind of outside the box. Just, hey, this is just for y'all. Just to, hey, you don't have to bring lunch today. I'm going to cook for you. And I go back there and start cooking first thing in the morning.
What do you think that's done for your staff? Have you been able to tell a difference between before and after?
I have. I guess it opens the door to people to communicate more versus just, hey, I'm in this office and don't talk. I wear my my Rad Dad grilling shirt, the day I cook. And, being able to communicate and talk with everybody, it's more like a family atmosphere. And so, just I see more of that.
I think it's very important. We've arrived in this point in our culture, and I'm talking about just culture overall, where retaining talent is probably one of the most important things that we have to do as entrepreneurs, because there's just so little of it out there. It's hard to find good people these days. But once you have them, you want to make sure that they're engaged, that they enjoy what they do. And a company culture is a huge part of that, right? Like, if you have great people that come to work, but then they don't enjoy their workplace, it's not worth it. Like on either side, right? On either side.
You nailed it with that point you just made there. I'm a member of a peer group, and I actually leave tomorrow to go to Denver with different printers across the U.S., and we collaborate, go over what's going on in their different printer, their operations, and we go over problems and things, just like you said. And that's probably the number one thing that pops up.
Labor force,
labor retention, keeping good talent. How are you doing that? Especially in our area now with, we got manufacturing plants popping up all up and down 60, and that's great for a lot of people. It's not bad for us, but it does add a level of competition that we really have to sell ourselves as being a family business. That different culture that we have, I may not be able to pay quite as much as some of those top positions over there, but I want to create a place where you feel welcome, understand, and set ourselves apart with that,
That's right. We deal with this already just through kind of, when the Walmart DC came in. I mean, they're paying top dollar.
Yep.
Of course, the work is different, right?
Yes, it's different.
It's definitely like heavy kind of like lifting, but it's like, how do you create something where a movement, if you will, that people want to be a part of? I think that's amazing. What's kind of like, you listed out a suite of services that, the company currently offers. Is there other things that you're also involved with? Because I heard a little bit of this cotton talk, but are there any other businesses that are kind of like under the Lewis Color umbrella?
Not necessarily under the Lewis Color umbrella. We do, me and my father, we own some commercial real estate and residential real estate and recreation real estate. So,
how'd you guys get into that?
Just, real estate's always one of those things that is there, it's concrete, and especially in our area, you can, even if you buy it and just look at it every day, it's not going to go down in value. It might have slips and dips, but it's going to come back.
That's right.
For sure. So, really like real estate. Really like commercial real estate, which is really hard to find in our area right now. People that are trying to rent, like one of our pieces or properties is solely focused on like different small businesses, these 1,000 square foot bays and things of that nature. And they're so hard to find. And we got like a waiting list of 20 people looking for those bays and things. So we do a little bit of that. I don't have any ownership in the gym, but my family, they own the In Shape Fitness Center over there. And that kind of a compliment is kind of going a little bit off topic, but back to Lewis Color and our services. One thing we added on during the pandemic was wide format signage, vehicle wraps, and things like that. So during that pandemic, we lost half our business overnight.
Wow.
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
A top customer and our third largest customer gone overnight. It was like canceled jobs too. So it was like they were in the pipeline and just everything got canceled. Then we lost them forever. They never came back.
They never came back.
So, one of them went out of business with a major restaurant. So we did lots of marketing, direct mail for restaurants and marketing firms. So really during that time, we had to just sit there and look at ourselves and like, what are we going to do to replace this work? And what other services can we offer? We were outsourcing a lot of our large format and that type of work to other printers across Georgia. And so it was like, hey, let's take a leap of faith. Let's bring that in-house and see if we can recoup some of that outsourcing dollar. And then we just really started grinding and looking at other sales staff. So we started adding on more salespeople and really started growing into certain niche markets. And we're almost back where we were pre-COVID now.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. But yeah, it was a major thing to overcome. Half your business going in a month. Yeah, it was crazy.
So let's talk about maybe, because this channel is really built for entrepreneurs. Do you come across a lot of entrepreneurs in your day to day, like while you're like in your job?
I do. We come across clients that are major entrepreneurs, and even though we print for different marketing firms, things like that, you can definitely see campaigns start from little campaigns of being, hey, I just want to send out 600 mailers. And next thing you know, there's one recently I kind of put my eye on. They're doing 40 and 50,000 mailers a month. So business must be growing because they have the marketing spend to, capture that.
Support that, yeah.
So see that, and I see actually some of our employees as well. You can see that entrepreneurial spirit. Doing maybe a little, what's the thing now? Side hustle. People are doing side hustles and things, and really growing with that, and I really support them with that because you can just see that in their day-to-day work as well, trying to make something work or having a passion for it and not just showing up, clocking in.
So, what advice do you give those people when they come to you?
Once I know about something, I'm asking them questions about it, and we kind of talk and collaborate at that point. If they need help with anything or if they have any questions about how I would do this or that.
Do you have a process of judging how good an idea is or how good a business is?
I do not. Do you have any processes there? Or?
I mean, so for me, I think number one is I see a lot of kind of like ideas that come through. And the first thing I tell people is like ideas are like phenomenal, but everything is in the execution, right? Being able to execute properly on the idea and also being able to identify kind of like when to pivot or when to kind of adjust is absolutely critical. The second thing that I often ask people to do is really like do the market research, because so many times people are like, like caught up in like the dreaming aspect. This could be like the next whatever, right? But they don't do the actual like groundwork and then figuring out like the financial, how are you going to make this happen, right? How much capital do you need? How much is the business going to actually have to do, right? These are all kind of like critical questions that I think, and there's no real training for this, but that's kind of like at least like a starting step.
Yeah, get a feel for it. Who is your customer base?
That's right.
You don't get there.
That's right.
So we definitely have a process for looking at acquiring existing businesses.
So you do that?
Yeah. So we look at that. We're always looking for other printers in the area and things like that. Some brokers, anything we can bring in house and manufacture in our plant. We're trying to do it for sure.
Got you.
We're growing that way and growing by acquiring, sales reps that already have a book of business and things like that.
And how do you put a value on that? Are you looking at kind of like the amount of revenue that that they have contractually, or are you just approaching it by feel? Because I mean, this is a very sometimes it's like you have that gut feeling of this is a good move, right?
That's right. We look at top line a little bit, but we're really looking at what type of debt they have. where the value of their sales.
Yeah.
Because if I'm bringing something in house, I can add value to that and actually do it maybe cheaper than they're doing it and manufacture it. There's a lot more upside for us. So I really want to look at the quality of their book of business. We already know you're going to lose 20 to 40%
just by the move,
just by an acquisition, because even though everybody says they're going to stay, once they know something changes up, you're going to have that natural loss.
Got you.
So if you when we look at things like that, we're always looking to see if we can get the sales rep and the staff that these people have been working with and try and keep as much of that as we can.
That's awesome. So how about, when you are kind of, going after these businesses, after you move them in, and is it typically other print shops that you are going after?
Yeah. So the last one we did was in 2017.
Okay.
We bought a printer out of Savannah, and we moved all the manufacturing to Statesboro, and we retained probably 70% of their staff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're looking at other printers. Got you.
So when you bring them in, you said that there's a bit of a loss to the clientele, and then but I'm assuming that you have just such clear understanding of your numbers of how that can fit into their model. Do you do walkthroughs of do you interviews, what does that even look like of that acquisition?
Yeah, so that process normally is not a quick process.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of time. We're looking through numbers. We're looking through their records. We're looking at key personnel. We want to see who's on staff and who are the real key people there, to making sure that those key people are coming over.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like the sell that. You want to see if you can get the culture, the people, everything over.
That's right. What's on the horizon for Lewis Color?
So we're really starting to grow our wholesale business even more. And that's kind of a product of technology and labor force aging.
Mm-hmm.
So our offset business, which is traditional, which everybody likes to look when they go to our plants, the big machines back there printing, that's a lot more labor intensive, and it takes a real skilled person to run those machines.
Mm-hmm.
And everything now is moving more kind of the digital and toner devices, which not taken away from anybody on my staff's listening. They're not, you can't get a monkey to run them, but they're a lot easier to run than offset press. So what these smaller printers are doing is maybe their pressman is about to retire.
Sure.
They don't want to make a capital investment of $1.5 million to buy a new machine that's getting old.
Wow.
So what they're doing is they're outsourcing that work to people like us, and they are just adding 20-30% to it, without even having to worry about that headache anymore. So we're really growing in that way. I've seen that a lot over the last 2 or 3 years.
So something in there just caught my attention. You said these machines are $1 million for a single used machine.
Yeah, used one. Yeah.
How much equipment? What is the value of the equipment that you have at Lewis Color?
Oh, it's roughly probably $4.5 million.
Oh my goodness! And all of these is basically the line of the machines that actually print the goods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's printers and our bindery department, which folds it, staples it, whether it's gluing or perfect binding or cool binding.
Is there any more technology on the way? One of my favorite topics to talk about right now is artificial intelligence, and kind of robots that are kind of starting to take over some of these tasks. There's a company out there that I think they're called Miso Robotics, MISO. And what they do is they're in the food industry, and you're starting to see kind of machines that drop the fries and do this. Yeah,
I've seen some of those things already.
I think it's
my phone will be sending me these.
Exactly. But what's on the horizon for press?
So we're always looking at technology and how we can. With our labor market, like we've discussed, you've got to figure out ways to bridge that. And with a aging workforce, which we're dealing with a lot of that as well, and hard to find skilled labor, you're looking at ways we can cut touch points, really implement a lean manufacturing line. So we've installed several machines just in the last year that are bridging the gap on those touch points and actually eliminating a couple of positions that are we would normally have to have somebody there. And everybody wants it quicker, faster, and better now. Yeah. So used to, you wouldn't even take a print job in the 80s and 90s if you didn't have 5 to 7 days to do it. Now people want it in 12 hours. They want to place it that afternoon. They're picking it up the next day. So, technology's there where we have really bridged that gap to where we have machines that we can produce work that quick.
Mm-hmm.
But we're always looking at that. So we just put in a cutter, slitter, score, perf machine, which they could do it all in the digital room where it finishes business cards or note cards or whatever it is right there without having to go to another department. They're actually boxing it right there. As far as a press goes, we're looking at that probably 2 to 3 years down the road, looking at another capital investment in that, especially if it continues to grow naturally like we are now.
What do you think is attributing to the growth of Lewis Color?
A big thing is we are G7 certified, which means anybody can send their print work to us and know that they're getting a quality job that would match any other G7 printer. So there's not a lot of those around. It's where, say, if you were, say you're a hospital and you have, you're about to have a big open house or something. So you got pop-up banners, you got business cards, you've got a direct mail piece that went out, and maybe you have some brochures. Well, those are really produced on about 4 different pieces of equipment. One's a toner device for digital, one's offset, and one's wide format. So different substrates look differently. They, color sits on them differently. So this just ensures that color matches between all the different substrates and it's going to look exactly right.
And is that a machine? Or
It's a certification, and it's a type of software we have to put on each one of the machines. And we have to do weekly checks on it to make sure it's still certified to where we can get our little sign to put in the door. We'll put on our website.
Yeah.
But it gives other printers the security that we will produce that job correctly. And they don't have to be so nervous. All right, we're farming this job out. I hope it looks good when it comes back.
Yeah.
So that's helping with a lot of growth. And with our integrated print solutions where we create these websites for these different printers, that is taking off like crazy right now because, whether it's hospitals, we have some companies that have hospitals, and we're creating these storefronts where they load all their stuff from gowns, because we do more than printing. We do, gowns, whether it's swag items like, koozies or whatever. We put it all on the storefront along with their business cards and things like that. And so instead of them having to manually call people to print this stuff out, they're ordering it right there on the spot, sharing it amongst all their other hospitals, and that's just taking off like wildfire.
So let me ask you this, are you drop shipping this?
Mm-hmm.
So they're not holding on to any inventory?
No.
Wow.
So we're doing it on demand.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
We inventory some pocket folders, like a real heavy user that they order, maybe 100,000 a year. So we'll print like batches of 20,000, but everything else is print on demand.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're not holding inventory or anything. So
you aren't?
Yeah, we're not.
So you're not holding the inventory
we hold the paper.
Oh, okay.
But we don't hold finished goods.
Got you.
Best way to say it.
Got you. How do people find Lewis Color? If there's somebody that's out there listening and, that has interest in potentially doing some work with you guys,
yeah,
how do they get in contact?
I guess the best way is always, you can go to our website, www.lewiscolor.com. We're located at 30 Joe Kennedy Boulevard behind Ogeechee Tech. I love giving tours and show people the place. So if anybody has any interest, definitely stop by and see us. And then we have Facebook and LinkedIn as well.
Fantastic. Justin, I have to thank you so much for coming onto the show. I think for me it's an inspiration that that this is a family business going on, I believe 3 generations now.
62 years.
Yeah, which is like no feat, like easy feat. Family businesses are extremely difficult to do, but the fact that you're able to kind of like take the business by the horns and then also implement like your style into there as well, right? With the culture pieces, people think that it might be small, but like doing your due diligence and cooking for your people, I think that's a huge opportunity for those relationships to be built, and then finally even the foresight of seeing what's happening in the future. I think that these are elements that every entrepreneur needs to have in their kind of like toolkit. But thank you so much for coming to the show, and then I'll definitely be doing some work with you moving forward.
Sounds great. Thanks,
absolutely.
Adam.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.